Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Savage Goose Show. I'm Goose, and today I am here with Jodi and Clint Black. We're going to be talking about Fae in LA, but first we got some other things to go over. I suppose I'm on the wrong slide. All right, starting off the past. No, we're going to start off with the newsletter. We're going to talk about the news from the past week in Savage Worlds, and then we'll talk about Fae in LA. So first, the news. We'll go over to our newsletter from Pinnacle. Now, real quick. When I get this email, it always comes from Jodi. But Jodi, you're not writing the email, right?
I'm not writing this. So I want to shout out to Scott Woodard, who does do all of our web updates and writing. I do give it a look over. So I'm the editor, and I do look things over, especially now. I'm lead editor instead of COO. That's a choice that I made for myself at the beginning of January. So side topic. We'll get to that.
Yeah. I'll
No,
get
this has my name still in the from field, and I've been involved with it for more than 10 years. But yeah, I don't do the writing on it because thankfully Scott's so much better at that than I have ever been.
So let's get into it. First big thing is the science fiction companion is now on Foundry VTT, thanks to the Metamorphic dev team, which is the team that Pinnacle has worked with to get VTT elements and support throughout. I think they do Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, and Roll20. Is that all three?
They do.
All three.
No, not the Fantasy Grounds, actually. That's their own team.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then coming down here, let's see here, the official Foundry Virtual Tabletop Marketplace is coming up.
Not tomorrow. That's
not tomorrow?
Yeah, not tomorrow. I mean, less than 45 minutes after we sent this newsletter, we got an email from them going, we've pushed it back to the 12th because there's still a few bugs and they've heard some feedback from their Discord community. They want to fix it up. And of course, they want everything to roll out as smooth as possible. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what?
so that I get the chance to say that here.
Yeah.
You know what, Goose? Not everybody gets newsletter updates in real time.
There you go. You hear it here first, people. This is not going to happen tomorrow. This will be happening on the 12th. So, no, don't get in the chat about that. Talk about something else. So basically, am I understanding this? It's just that it's just going to be a marketplace, an easier way for people to buy the modules for Foundry than the way they. Having not used Foundry, I don't know how you buy modules in the first place for Foundry. So
Sure. So let me explain real quick.
Yeah.
Right now, you come to our website and you buy the modules for Foundry. Whereas if you want to buy a module for any other system, you're going to their website, to their website, to their website. The marketplace is going to bring everybody together at one place. So if you're playing Foundry, you only have one place to look for everything you want.
Perfect. Which does make things a lot easier, for sure. Mm-hmm. Got it. Hey, look, this next piece of news is pretty interesting. Jodi and Clint Black are joining the Savage Goose on YouTube. Crazy. I don't know if anyone that was watching the stream knew that, but now they do, just in case they didn't. It's at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Like 4 minutes ago. So you better jump over there and watch it right away. Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about Fae. They're going to be talking about Fae in LA, and we'll get more into that. So I'm not going to pay much attention right now, but because we're going to get more into it. On the Savage Universe, they are going to be meeting with Jeff Spring from Cartoon Villains to talk about the Deck of Shadows, which is going to be a Foundry VTT 54 card modern deck fantasy adventure deck for Savage Worlds, and that is 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, which is a very different time than Savage Universe usually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So. Yeah, I'll actually be able to watch it this time because usually Savage Universe is during my weekly Savage Worlds game, so I can't watch usually. So this will be nice. I can watch it during my office.
Does this mean you're not gaming instead? I'm sorry.
Huh?
You would be gaming if you weren't watching that though, because I would rather you be gaming. But
No. I don't watch the Savage Universe stream usually because I'm gaming instead. Like sorry, JM, I can't watch the stream, so I have to watch it later at not live. Most of the time.
That's a good excuse.
Yeah. I was like, I'm playing Savage Worlds like right now. Sorry. Yeah, my normal gaming group is Thursdays from 6:30 to 10ish. So we only play for like 2.5 hours at most at a week. But it's a weekly game, and I know people who can't get those, and I'm appreciative of it.
Yeah, that's great.
Licensee Roundup, Gaslight, Victorian, Scarlands, and Pip and Pawn. So Gaslight Victorian. I don't know how I missed this Kickstarter because it completely flew under my radar until I saw this in the newsletter about Gaslight Victorian, which is a Gaslight Victorian setting for 5e and Savage Worlds. That's available. There's a version of it already on Drive-Thru RPG for Deluxe Edition. There's now going to be an updated version for Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, as well as an updated version for 5e. The funny thing for me is that I actually own one of the older 5e versions of this from one of their Kickstarters, like
I think it was
8
like
years.
2018, 2019, maybe.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the other, and I was like, oh, I know Gaslight Victorian, and then I was like, perfect. There's a Suede version now. That's great. So if you want to pre-order it, you can look at the link in here. I did put a link in the description below to go pre-order any of their books, whether it be the 5e version or the Savage Worlds version. Go check that out. And
real quick, that is not on Kickstarter, I believe. And
Sorry.
I could be wrong, but I think that one was run on BackerKit crowdfunding.
Yes.
So that might be why you didn't hear about it as readily. But BackerKit is a great platform. We're using it for Mad World, so
yes.
I certainly hope people will check that out. And of course, the Battlefield Press people and that setting is one of my favorites too. So I love it.
Yeah, I will say I'm not super familiar with it, but it's like the actual setting in the book. But I imagine like the general vibe of Gaslight Victorian settings is something that I enjoy. Mm-hmm. So speaking of stuff I enjoy, Scarred Lands is coming to Savage Worlds, and I've been talking about this for probably 2 weeks in a row now, and I don't know why I'm so excited. I don't have like a really good reason that I'm so excited about this, but I'm really excited about it. I did do a video about this, the latest creature feature for the Blood Reaper, just kind of taking a look at the old 5e version of because I have the 5e version of this book, and then comparing it to the new Savage Worlds version, and this monster's scary. It's kind of terrifying. And I'm super excited for Scarred Lands in Savage Worlds. This is one. It kind of really jumped to like one of the top things I'm really excited about for the year. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm excited.
I like horror. I like horror. That's why I work with Shane.
Let's see here. Finally, we have a Kickstarter to pledge your sword for Pin Palm. I did not get I did not get a chance to look at this yet, so let me pull this up real quick to see what I can share this tab instead.
From what I saw, it looks very intriguing. You're actually taking the concepts of gaming and putting them into your game world so that you can create games for your characters to play. And that's something that's not completely new, but to be able to come up with games on the fly and to have those kind of available. So like, what is chess in your world, for example?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
From what I saw on a high level pass. So hopefully that is, I'm not like just talking out of my butt, but it does look really cool to me.
That does sound about right, which is something that I can definitely see some of my players really enjoying. Yeah. Cool. So I'll go and head back here. And then, so look at that. I don't have a link to this yet in the my description. I'll add it. I'll try to remember to add it later. I know I'm not always the best at it. I apologize. But I'll try to get this added later into the description down below. And then we have the shape of things to come with our Kickstarters for our Pinnacle. So right now, for me personally, I'm at this one right here, where I'm just waiting for this to ship. And I'm excited to get my book. This is going to be the last of the core companions that we're really looking forward to. So get that on the shelf, get that next to all my other ones. Super excited about that. More Pathfinder stuff. I'm currently running our weekly game is a Pathfinder game right now. So more options for my players is always great. And then I am looking forward to getting this one as well. The books in that one looks really fun. I haven't gotten into Lost Colony yet, so we'll see about that. But there's a lot of other stuff that's coming. I'm super excited for.
I
All
got
right.
to work a bit on the Abominable Northwest and the Carnage and the Cascades, plot point for that, that kind of stuff. At least, checking it over for some things.
Yeah.
Shane's crazy. Shane's just there's going to be some stuff in that plot point campaign that's just going to blow people's minds.
Well, the thing is, I've always felt very guilty about the fact that as a Savage Worlds player who's played Savage Worlds for over 10 years now, I think, technically, I've never played Deadlands. I just like, I know, yeah, I've never played Deadlands. I have the books now, because during the Night Train Kickstarter, I got my box set of Deadlands. I think it's going to be the setting we play after we're done with our Pathfinder campaign. It's going to be Deadlands, which I know my players are looking forward to. I know I'm looking forward to. I just have to keep reading all the content, and I love that there's so much lore for me to read and consume. I just have to make sure I don't overwhelm myself with that lore, right? But there's a lot of stuff in there. As I have the, so I have the penny the Indigo Tales for that came with Night Train, and I've got I'm looking forward to getting the graphic novel that comes in the Bottom of the Northwest, and I understand that that's the third one.
For the Black Circle, you mean?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
So that's a 3-parter, and there's more content coming for that. Let me just put it that way.
Well, it means I have like 2 other ones that already came out that I didn't know about that I need to go get. So, but that is our crowdfunding status. We're going to go ahead and move over to new products. There's 2 products I wanted to highlight that came out this past week. The first one is fundraisers, raises, and bonus damage. So the fundraisers series is a series of supplements to help you think of new ways to think about different pieces of the game. The first one they did was bennies and like new setting rules for how you can use bennies. We've talked about using a few of them. We're hesitant to incorporate them into our games mid-campaign, but there's a few that we really enjoy out of that we want to think about doing in the future. There's another one for the action deck, which is new ways to look at jokers, new ways to look at the action deck, change up some things, maybe make things a little bit easier for your players, a little bit harder for your players. And this one is for raises and bonus damage, new ways to kind of think about raises and bonus damage. I haven't had a chance to look at this product yet, so I can't officially give it any sort of endorsement. But based on the other stuff that Christian has done, it looks like it's going to be fun to look through. So once I give it a read through, I'll show you guys and talk more about that. The other one is technically not a Savage Worlds product. It is a Tricube Tales 1-page for Vermilium. If you guys know me, you guys know I really enjoy Vermilium. It's one of the other settings that's like, I need to make a video just on like all the settings I want to run and like talk about all of them. But Vermilium is really high on that list. It's the game that my wife and I are trying to do a duet game of, not the way you guys do duet. We do it a little bit differently, but maybe we'll talk about that too later. So it's a really fun setting. I really enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to trying to learn more about Tricube Tales, and because there's a couple other games for Tricube Tales that are coming out that I want to look over. But Tricube Tales has a lot of community overlap with Savage Worlds, so give that take a look if you want. And then we'll get back to our. And now we're going to talk about Kickstarters. So Beneath the Pyramid's Shadow, which is a cosmic horror apocalypse RPG. It's a little mini setting for Savage Worlds. This is going on currently over on Kickstarter, and it ends on Tuesday, February 25th. So if you're into cosmic horror, you're looking for something like a little bit light on the rule, a little light in the lore, but enough for you to really have a solid foundation for a setting, go check out that Kickstarter. And then from Pinnacle, coming sometime in February, don't know when yet, is going to be Deadlands, Lost Colony, Mad World. So it's going to be a new campaign, plot point campaign for Deadlands, Lost Colony, right? Yeah. And then another one that's currently going on is the Secret World North America. This is the expansion book for North America for the Secret World RPG. This is for both the 5e version and the Savage Worlds version. So if you're interested at all in that, you can take a look at that Kickstarter down below. That ends on Saturday, February 22nd. And that leads us really well into this month Ace licensee spotlight for the Secret World. This is my special edition copy with the Templar cover. And just to kind of talk briefly about this and kind of highlight what this is, the Secret World is a MMORPG from I can't remember the name of the company that's from right now, but it's one of Star Anvil Studios, Brandon's favorite games. His wife actually said he plays more of it than he has. Got like 3 characters all the way to level 50 or something like that, and this is the book for it. And basically what he's doing is taking not only the lore of the world, but he's also taking some aspects of the game design in the MMO and translating it into Savage Worlds. And I know some people are going to say, oh, not sure if I'd like that. No, the way that he does it in this book in a way that he kind of like adds in rules that make sense with Savage Worlds, and adds in these cool new abilities for your characters, makes this really seamless, and that you can see where he's going through the game design. And I'm not going to I'm gonna call a few of these things. Like for instance, one of these things he has got is called conduits. I'm not sure if you can really see that. And this is for lack of a better way to put this, the way these conduits work is that it's kind of tied into the way that they worked inside of the in the video game itself. So I really enjoy the game design for this, and how like how Brandon and his team tie this into the video game aspect, both in the lore and in the way you can build your characters. So if you're interested in a setting where you are hunting monsters and you are kind of like secret agents with superpowers, go check out this setting. All right. All that being said, it's time for the main shindig. Let's talk about Faye in LA, shall we?
Faye in LA. Thank you, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, bro. I'm happy. So we got Jodi, we've got Clint, and if you're just joining us, this is the Savage Goose, where we are talking with Jodi and Clint about their new project, Faye in LA.
And thank you for joining us, and thank you for having us here, Goose, and also thank you to everybody who's backed us on the Patreon, because that is how we chose to do this, as like our ACE licensee. So of course we're both working for Pinnacle. This is a completely different thing. We are not doing this as a Pinnacle project. This is us doing a new ACE license as the Black Edition, because Jodi and Clint Black were like, hey, isn't that cute? So we decided to, because we've been talking about our game, this new setting that we created for ourselves called Faye in LA for 3 years now. And it was just something that Clint and I played together. But whenever we'd go to conventions or we were talking to friends about it, we were like, oh, it's this little thing, and they were like, tell me more. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we've heard about that enough that people said, we want to know more. We want to support you with this. And I think we have more than 80 people that are backing us on Patreon right now, which I think is a big launch for Patreon. So
I think so, yeah. So before we get too much into Faye for LA, before we get too much into it, for those people who just for some reason they don't know, let's talk about who you guys are, real quick. Jodi, do you mind if we start with you? Just tell us who you are and what is your connection to Savage Worlds.
Okay. Oh wow. It's actually easier to start with Clint.
Okay.
Because he started with the play testing of even before Savage Worlds was a thing, and I started as just a mediocre little play tester on this thing. So I'll let you go, Clint, and pick it up from there, and then I'll talk about me and my involvement. How about that?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Clint, go ahead.
Yeah, our history with Savage Worlds goes back literally to 2002, before the release in 2003 of the first version of it. And I was just on a mailing list that was talking about Pinnacle stuff, and like you can go now and you can get the test drive off the website and get a free version of how to play and everything. Shane was putting out test drives of a work in progress. He was doing one of the first beta testing of an RPG in the design at the time, and I happened to post something out there about how, hey, I ran a game for Jodi based on Starship Troopers, and here's the stats that I created for the bugs, real quick. And Shane emailed me soon after that and went, you get it. You get exactly what I'm going for with this. Hey, you want to come on and be a part of it? And it started with that. Now, as you know, if you open up your Suede, it says Shane Hensley with Clint Black. We got to, I can point back to stuff in the first edition that I was like, hey, I wrote it up. I think it should say something like this, and Shane is like, cut and paste and put it in there. But yeah, I'm senior game designer at Pinnacle. I have been Savage Worlds brand manager. I was because we have really not we have fun with it. I mean, my official title for a while was Savage Worlds Rules Guru. and Answer Guy and everything like that.
I'll
That
say
was
when someone quotes Clint on a rule, that's like law essentially.
yeah, that is how it goes. It's interesting to me when I go into like the Savage Worlds subreddit and somebody's asked a question and I'm like, oh, I know the answer to that, and somebody's like pointed to where I answered it somewhere else, and I went, well, thanks for saving me the time.
Yep. Yeah, usually it's like going to the old forum, like, well, Clint said this here, so
Yeah.
therefore.
Yep, that was it. But yeah, we've done that. I'm also the creator of the Necessary Evil setting.
Okay, I did not know
Which,
that.
yeah, I created Necessary Evil, which I believe was the first color, full color book that Pinnacle released for Savage Worlds. The
Right.
original version of Savage Worlds, Evernight and 50 Fathoms were black and white interiors. And let's see, so I created Necessary Evil. I've worked on just about everything since then in some way, shape, or form. There is a running joke amongst Pinnacle about the black edit, which is when you submit your thing to Clint and Clint says, I love this. There's only a few things I want to change. Let's start with page 1. And you've got hit by the black edit. And it is just a joke, and it is funny because most people are like, no, that was what I wanted to do, and that's how we do it. And I get to work with some of the most creative, brilliant people in the industry. It's amazing. But yeah, like Jodi said, I mean, we've essentially been with Savage Worlds before there was a Savage Worlds.
Which is really cool to see, and that like because that was, like you said, that was 2002, so we're talking about 23 years of Savage Worlds,
Yep. I
of being
still
part of
have I still have the original PDF files of the pre-release version where we had it split into 2 PDFs so that we could email it back around easier without being too big. Of the rules somewhere on my thing. The pre-release copies of what we were going through and working with way back when.
I'm
got
just
that
now
somewhere.
realizing that I need to have like you and Shane on at some point just talk about the history of changes to Savage Worlds
Oh
at some
yeah,
point. Well, that's
yeah.
that's another video.
It is.
That is
That's another.
that is
That's
a whole
other
other thing.
discussion. And we were even involved a little bit before that because we played Deadlands, and we would hang out with the Pinnacle crowd at conventions. So that's one reason why Clint was even involved in those discussions online, is because he got into the email loops and that sort
Yeah,
of thing. So
I had done freelance stuff with Pinnacle. The first thing I ever wrote for Pinnacle was actually for the Epitaph, and it was the expansion for the librarians for Hell on Earth in the Epitaph. And it was the second thing I ever had published as a game designer, actually. And if you really want to go back to a bit of trivia, the first thing I ever had published as a game designer was in White Wolf magazine.
Oh,
And later on, I went back and discovered in that same magazine, Shane had written a review. And so, as I tell people, I have never gotten my career away from Shane Hensley. Not even before I thought I was working with him, I was working with him.
it was fate. It was fate.
Yeah.
What can we say? Some things are just meant to go together, like peanut butter and jelly, Clint Black and Shane Hensley. You know.
Right.
there you go. All right.
Now,
So,
Jodi,
anyways, that's how we kind of got into it, and then and I got started as a playtester, and then because I have such a some people will call it anal retentive. I would, anyways, meticulous eye for detail, right? And
There you go.
grammar Nazi. So I got into editing first of all, which is why I'm now back to being lead editor. But it also kind of kept me involved in things that over time kept me on top of all of the day-to-day operational things, such as, oh, this is how we're going to coordinate shipments between countries, and this is how we're going to figure out how we charge for this price on this book, or this kind of price on shipping, or just all of the little nitty-gritty things. But 10 years ago, Clint and I also started our own company called Carolina Game Tables. So for the past
Very nice
10
tables.
years, yeah. So the past 10 years, I've been running 2 companies and involved in those day-to-day decisions of price setting and, employee type stuff and all of that. So it just got to be a bit much. And about, what was it? Anyways, I took some time off towards the end of last year to think about it and go, where do I want to go with this? And really it was, I just need to step back from that level of being involved at Pinnacle. Just continue doing that for Carolina Game Tables because we've gotten to the point where more of my time is needed for that. So now I'm part-time at Pinnacle and as lead editor, I actually get to read every single word we publish now. And it feels great. Can I just say, I'm having so much fun. And I'm still involved with everybody. I'm still around for them to ask me questions. Like, I don't know, I can't even bring anything to the top of my head. It's like, where is this file, or how do we track those sales numbers? It's like, I've got that. It's in my head somewhere.
Yeah.
But I don't have to do that day to day. And of course, it's been hard for me to let go. I don't know why. I might be a little bit of a control freak, but but still, it's been so much fun for me to now be, wearing the hat of lead editor, and it's one that I'm very proud to wear. And of course, our games are top notch. The authors are the best. I am actually working on Mad World right now, doing my 3rd level pass on it, and just so much into the tuning of things. Like, anyways, it's not even worth talking about until we have it available for people to talk about. I will say, however, as a person, Goose, who likes things that are in space and who likes horror, there was one moment in Mad World where I was reading it and I had to write this message off to Daryl. And I said, you are not right and you need help, but I am here for this. I love it.
Very nice. Yeah, so one of the things, I think you mentioned how I think Shane Hensley loves horror, you love horror. It's like, yeah, that's one of the things that you can definitely see inside of Pinnacle products. It's like, yes, horror is beloved amongst Pinnacle employees.
It is, but also because it gives us the chance in our daily lives where there's a lot of things we don't have control over, and there's battles we just can't fight. Whether it's a battle against illness or whatever it is that you're struggling against, this is something that you can fight in your own world, this fantasy world that we've created in this shared space of role-playing. And we can make a real difference, and we can fight evil, and we can be big damn heroes and save the world, or just this little town, or you can be super villains and save the world,
Yeah, whatever you want. And that's the reason I love Savage Worlds, is because it's just so gosh darn adaptable. Cool. So that's you guys.
Yeah. So now, Faye in LA?
Yeah, Faye in LA. So so we're just gonna start with I'm gonna, start with a few things. We're just gonna start with, just give me, what is your elevator pitch for Faye in LA?
Okay. It's 1927. You're in Los Angeles. You're a member of the Facade, which is the hidden community of the supernatural that normal humans cannot see. And they can have an ogre walk right past them on the street and they don't even know it because all they see is a tall person. And what we've got with our supernatural, urban fantasy setting here is a series of fun, kind of campy sometimes pulpy, sometimes horrific. Sometimes you can be doing world-changing things, but it's all kind of these pocket elements of speakeasies. You've got, flapper dresses. You've got crime. You've got the mobs that are fighting each other. You've got Prohibition era. There's, secret places where you might imbibe in alcohol or other illicit substances. But, we all want to be kind of on the same, side here. And we're all members of the Facade. We're all behind the scenes on this because we want to maintain this anonymity. We don't want to be seen by the mundane world because that's when the pitchforks come out, and we don't like that. That's the high level setting. Come join us as we romp through this world and we have some fun.
Cool. So I'm gonna start asking some questions about this then, just based on that overview. So you said, okay, you're all members of the Facade, and is the Facade just like the organization, or is it an actual supernatural thing or supernatural veil? I mean, you talked about how you don't see the ogre, you just see a tall person. So like, what is the, as part of the world, what is the magic around that?
So
That
the
that is
facade is
exactly
the
it.
magic. That's
Okay.
the veil, that is keeping the mundane people from seeing anything. The ruling body that's kind of governing things between the different supernatural elements is called the council. And these are people in white suits. And if they show up, oh, heaven help you, you are in it now, because you don't want that to happen either. It's worth it for you to try to manage your own stuff. It's kind of like with how I raised my kids. If I have to come over there and fix it for you, nobody's going to be happy. Not you, and not me. So don't let that happen.
That is a lot how the council are. How Jodi parents. Yeah, yeah. It is. It is though. It is a glamour, essentially, that was cast over the world hundreds of years ago. Basically, in the Dark Ages, when monsters were being hunted, to just say, "Hey, mortals, you don't see us as anything other than another one of you." But the facade does have limits. If you do things that are very overtly supernatural, it starts to weaken it. And that's what the council does. The council doesn't, they're not like the, protectors of the supernatural. They're the protectors of the facade, first and foremost. So they want to be sure that that's kept hidden and whatever. And there are some limits to it. So yes, as Jodi kind of said, all the supernatural characters have sort of an obligation to maintain this and not do anything overtly in front of where a mortal can see it. If they don't see it, though, it doesn't really threaten anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
Go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say, Clint of course we've talked about this, but Clint's the rules guru, so he leads the charge on this, and then I kind of go, okay, but maybe we tweak it this way. No, I think I'm good here. But he built it into the background for every ancestry that you do have that as an obligation, a capital O obligation, hindrance to some level for maintaining the facade. And then it just depends on how readily apparent you would be to humans if the facade were to drop. So if you were in some area that for some reason the veil wore thin there, and suddenly they can tell that you're a goblin, well, that's going to stand out a little bit more than if you are a magic using human, for example. You can still look human. You're a human.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, you're human, so it's just yeah. So okay, so that makes sense. Actually, that brings up another question now I have, is obviously, as you said, like the supernatural creatures, fae, goblins, or ogres, all that, if someone sees them, they're going to know that they're magical, and they go, what is this? But what about you said you mentioned humans that have magic? How do humans? Is it that they're born with the magic, or like is there some way that they get to become part of the facade?
Well, that's actually yes to all of those kind of.
Okay.
So I'll give you a bit of a preview here.
Okay.
FANLA has 6 core ancestries available. And the core ancestries are kind of like, you can take these and make whatever you want out of it. Because all the characters are built using the Superpowers companion. And they're power level 1, essentially. So
Okay.
very, urban, you know, um, you know, street level kind of abilities. But still,
Right.
when you're the only people that have those abilities, it stands out more. But if you want to play a magic mortal, then you can design that however you want when you take the superpowers. Your abilities could be, I'm a sorcerer, or your abilities could be, I found a magic item that has given me special abilities. And once you kind of essentially take possession of those things or bond with them or whatever, you kind of enter the facade. The glamour that's kind of cast around it just stops affecting you.
Okay.
And then you go out on the street and you realize, oh my gosh, they're everywhere, you know, and you become a part of that. So yeah, there's a variety of ways as a mortal to become, you know, magical. It's
Part of the
magical mortal because there's so many things. It could be an item. You could have inherited an ability or have a blessing or a curse that you carry that's magical and leads back that you could have been born with, like you said. Or it could be you found a book on alchemy and started reading it, and now you know how it works.
Okay. So yeah, so one of the questions I was going to ask is like, can you play a normal human? But essentially, like, you could start out as a normal human, but by some means,
Yeah.
you're no longer normal, and now you have to adjust your whole entire life to this new concept of this whole entire supernatural realm that you just discovered.
Yeah. There is a thing which it went out as a preview, early access to some of our patrons today. It'll go to all of them next week, where we talk about character creation. And one of the things it says in there is hindrances. And doubting Thomas is a really hard hindrance to have in this setting, because you have to do that. I will say, in our campaign, Jodi had a character who was part of the facade who had doubting Thomas as a hindrance as an NPC. He just believed he was seeing the inner true self of people, of regular humans, when he was seeing this stuff. He thought that he was touched in some way, that he was seeing this stuff, not that it was quote unquote real, that they were like this. But yeah, it would be really hard to be a doubting Thomas, and there's not really a setup to play just a mortal who doesn't know, you know, about it. You,
Sure.
in some way, shape, or form, you're part of the facade, and that's what kind of binds the characters together, so you can have a diverse group of player characters who are all at least bound by the facade.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
And we do have different types of supernaturals. So, of course, everything is still subject to change because we're basing all of this on our 2 years of having played this. But how does that translate into group play and, you know, what is going to work in the end? So, for right now, we've got zombies and skeletons. We've got, of course, any element of fae. We've got werewolves. We've got, I mean, like you can. We've got the angels, we've got demons, we've got, you know, the imps.
Well, let's say celestials and infernals.
Exactly.
and things like that. So the 6 core ancestries, by the way, are fae, magical mortal, infernals, celestials, undead. I should have had undead in there earlier, and elementals. And I was trying to put undead earlier, because I'm putting them out there as to what are the most common supernatural creatures that are around. Fae are
Right.
kind of the most common. That's why it's Fae in LA. Then you've got mortals that have some magic. It's a little bit more rare, but they're out there still. Then you get into the undead. The undead are fairly common, so to speak, but they tend to stay in the shadows and at
Right.
night. You know, they kind of no undead really likes the sunlight.
Right. And by undead, we're taking like vampires, ghouls, that kind of thing.
Zombies, anything you want to play. You just start out with, you could start with the core ancestry of undead, and then use the superpowers to create, you know, what specific type you are. And then we do have some specific ancestries, like zombie. Like if you want to play a zombie, here is very much of how zombies are a little bit different from other undead. So some of those do exist, but there's, you know, we put out a cosmology, was one of the first things we put out, about how the different realms and planes connect to each other.
Right.
And the main thing is kind of the fact that the easiest travel between dimensions is from the Fey realm to the mortal realm. And that's why you have more Fey than the others around there. But yeah, you can play undead, you can play an infernal celestial, or the other option with using these core ancestries is you could play a human that has some bloodline of that. So you count as Fey, but it's somewhere in your past or somewhere,
like
that you,
like a half elf, but like more like 1/10 elf or something.
yeah, something like that. Like, great great grandma up in the mountains, met a beautiful man and spent a life with him,
Yep.
you know.
Gotcha.
And
What'll really rock your noggin though is if you've got some sort of aspect of undead in your background. We don't need to explain that. You figure it out. But
So
yeah,
cool. Okay, so we're talking about character creation. So I'm gonna ask a little bit more about that. One of the things that you mentioned already is that for this game you do need the superpowers companion. So you need the core rulebook, superpowers companion. Why in for this setting? Why superpowers companion? Like what was that decision like?
because because me,
Okay, what does that mean?
well,
What does that mean?
because so as we mentioned earlier, it's like I created the original Necessary Evil, which was like the first superpower setting, power system.
Right, right.
And admittedly, like the version that's in there, this was a group thing. I had like 3 different systems for handling superpowers in Savage Worlds that I went through in that originally, and we came back to kind of one at the end of the kind of point-based system. But with the Superpowers Companion, I have always held the belief and told people that it can be used as the basis for so much more. By taking those points and rearranging them and redoing them and handling them in different ways, you can create a lot of different things.
and
And
for sorry for interrupting, but for me the main thing was with a superpower you always have that ability at your disposal. So for example, if you've got the Fey Glamour, it's not like you have a certain number of power points where okay, I can only cast this power for like 2 rounds and then I'm out of power points. Forget it. You're done and now you need to rest up until you can get some more, spend bennies. No, no, no. This is your superpowers companion. You've already bought that ability. You can just do this because it's part of your ancestry. This is how you built your character from the very beginning. And then
Sure.
that makes it easier as you continue to upgrade your character throughout. So it just made more sense to
Right.
me
Okay.
to
So
use
so
the superpowers companion.
yeah, so it's kind of just like to kind of rephrase what you're saying. So essentially, like when you take your ancestry, you're not really taking a very specific ancestry. So one of the first question we had was, what kind of Fae will you be able to play? And really, it's whatever you can think of, right? Like
yeah,
you take the Fae ancestry, and then after that, you just go to the superpowers companion, and you take the superpower that makes sense for whatever kind of Fae
right,
you're designing.
Yeah.
right. In the ancestry document that we're working on now, I gave an example of changelings. And so player characters start at power level 1, which is 15 power points, a power limit of 5 in any one. But most NPCs only have maybe 5 power points worth of other abilities. And I say, you can take the Fey Core Ancestry and 5 power points and give it Chameleon, biometric, touch only, and you can basically create, and then like 2 points of super skill performance to be able to act. And you've created changelings. Fae who can take other forms. If they touch somebody, they can specifically take their form, and you've got the changeling Fae. Now we do have some ancestries, and the idea is to be a little bit flexible with it. If there's something that, and this came about from us playing of, I like the idea of the core ancestry to begin with, but then there are things like goblins or imps that are essentially a size smaller. And that's innate to the ancestry, as opposed to, well, I don't want to say everybody who plays this has to take the small hindrance.
Right.
So we do have some specific, and it allows us to get in there and have some differences in there of certain things of saying, okay, this is what this, how goblins are a little bit different from everybody else. So we do have like, and Goblins and ogres are kind of the most common fae that you'll find in the area, and you have that. So some of those we have. Again, we're dealing with cases of, well, these people are always a size smaller, and ogres are always a size larger, and there's some things that go along with that are kind of innate
Sure.
with the ancestry. But you could very easily take the fae core ancestry, take the growth superpower as always on, and say my character is a half giant or part giant or something like that, and build it that way. So yeah, it is
Right.
a thing of core ancestry to make whatever you want, any kind of background or whatever you want to be. And then there are some specific ones that say, okay, but I want to be a goblin specifically and not have to spend extra powers or things to be a goblin.
Yeah, you're just right now. What you're doing is you're completely changing my mindset about ancestry creation. If I'm honest, like it's like just a whole new philosophy on ancestry creation in my mind. So that's cool.
Cool. I love
That's
breaking
talking to
people's
Clint right
ideas.
there in a nutshell.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
changed my mind about everything.
Well, yeah, just like because I've seen there's been you know there's one of the other games that is on my shelf back there. What they tell you to do when it comes to ancestries is like, no, we're not going to give you pre-generated ancestries. Use the ancestry building guidelines inside the core rulebook, right? And like, I thought that was a great kind of jump forward. Like, yeah, just do whatever you want. And now you're like, no, okay. Now take all those options that are on that ancestry building, and now add in Superpower Companion, and now you have a whole new way to create ancestries.
Yeah.
That's
Just, I will say that was another aspect and thing I enjoyed about like stress testing Savage Worlds to a certain extent. In Suede, the Adventure Edition, we have a thing there for having, hey, if you want something really oddball, you can take superpowers using the Superpower Companion, just spend 2 additional points to get it to cover the fact that it would have taken an edge to get access to those. Well, since all of the supernatural creatures have that edge for free as part of everybody having superpowers, I was able to build these ancestries just using powers on a 1-for-1 basis. So I can do things like, okay, you specifically have this, there's this superpower you have that normally in ancestry creation would have cost 2 extra points. But because everybody has superpowers, you just get it at the point value. And it opened up, the ancestry creation so much. And really it was like, okay, yes, I can create, doppelgangers in here. Which in Fey and LA, the difference between a doppelganger and a changeling is changelings take other people's forms. Doppelgangers create duplicates of themselves.
okay.
That's
That you can have
as far as the
multiples of
name.
yourself.
Yes. And I really kind of confused Jodi by having someone who was part changeling and part doppelganger, so they could appear to be different people, but it was all the same person. You're dealing with.
Very
That
nice.
threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
So actually, let's talk about that real quick. So you're talking about how you confusing each other, and let's kind of clarify for everyone how you guys have kind of established this setting, because you guys play duet games,
Yes.
specifically where you guys have I believe you guys put this in one of your posts recently. That you guys change off GMing between the two of you. So do you want to? I don't know if you want to talk about more about that real quick.
Yeah, so this is something that we've done, and it just kind of came naturally for us. And I will say that it started with Clint being the GM and me being the player for like an entire campaign. And that worked out great because that was kind of getting our feet wet with the duet gaming. And I think that's how most people do it. One GM, one player. But then after that, it was like, hey, I've got an idea and I want to play in this world too. So now we're both GMs, we're both players, but not at the same time. So if I'm the GM, I'm running Clint through basically a plot point campaign. That's a Pinnacle term, not our term. But, one of those campaign ideas for Clint's character. And he's running one for me when it's his turn to be the GM. And if there is kind of a conflict, we'll talk about it outside of the game. Or, just because we're from Deadlands originally, it'll be like, hey, Marshall to Marshall, this is a thing that I want to have in the game. Is that okay with you? Or, hey, this is a shared NPC that we've created for this setting. The guy who works at the diner, waits tables, or is the chef or something. Can I use that guy for this plot point idea that I have, and you don't touch that guy? Sure, okay, I can let that guy go, and
Right.
then you're just like, what is he going to use it for? So we do have times where we have to kind of go, all right, how are we going to hand this over without revealing without tipping the hand, but at the same time, yeah, it's pretty cool how we can weave our stories together and do one point, second point, handing over the GM badge, handing over the player badge, and and
It is.
part of it works because we've been married for so long and
Yeah.
we can communicate. That's a big part of it, and it does mean that sometimes we argue. That happens
Oh,
with married couples sometimes. I don't know if you've heard,
I,
but so that happens as game masters too. But you have to keep it separate. This is about the game,
Mhm.
and we've talked about it. Now we put that aside.
but
So
I mean, it's the thing. One thing we want to do with the Black Edition is talk about both duet gaming, which we've done a couple of live streams on the Pinnacle channel where we've talked about those with some other couples who do duet gaming, Christian and Jen, Robin and Sean Bircher, and we've talked about this before, but also co-GMing, because co-GMing doesn't have to be a duet game only thing. The real aspect of it is any role-playing game, tabletop RPG, is very dependent on trust. The trust the players have between each other, and especially trust between the player and the GM. Well, if you're co-GMing, it's just playing off that trust of the other person that we're doing this. But in exchange, we get the opportunity to have two simultaneous plot point campaigns that are going on at the same time, and being able to have things that grow and change your storyline as a part of your playing in one campaign, and how that affects the storyline you run in another one, which has just been, I mean, it's been amazing as a player and a GM to see that happen. And it really is, as Jodi said, communication. I mean, we did a duet Deadlands game where we created a town in the Rocky Mountains that was the basis for our game, and it was just sharing of, okay, who works here? My
Right.
character is going to be the doctor.
Shared world
And
building.
yeah, shared world building. I mean, from the ground up on that. But and then
Yeah.
Faye in LA was even more of that. We didn't even have Deadlands as a basis. We're creating the whole world.
from
Yeah.
scratch, which was
Yeah.
a little intimidating at first. But then once we started establishing some parameters, like, okay, this one's going to be city based. We'll choose Los Angeles in 1927 because so much happened in that year and in that era. We do like a historical setting. We can do some research. That is the year that the first talkie came out. So it was kind of an age of revolution, not just in society, but in Hollywood itself. So that was pretty cool, and I had chosen for my character to be an aspiring actress. So that made it easy for Clint to kind of lean into that for the campaign for my character. So we were able to kind of like dive into those, ideas. And once we started, saying, okay, well, first we need to establish a studio, right? And there needs to be a detective agency for Clint's character, who's, a paranormal detective. So we need to set that up. And then what kind of cases is he investigating? I need to figure out some of those and, take inspiration from the time. Like, if you have a normal case of that time, like that's written about in legal proceedings and newspapers, how do I change that so it has supernatural elements and make it cooler, basically,
Yeah, that is the advantage of historical settings, is you can play off of those things that happen. And Hollywood and Los Angeles was so much fun because there was so much happening in the film industry, in the growth of it, and just all the stuff that was changing so quickly. I mentioned I put out a document about a playtest I ran Sunday before last here for a game day, and I explained to the players that in 1927, cars were just, the Model T had been out. It's getting ready to go into Ford's next big model. Cars are everywhere. Los Angeles had no parking. None. No parking lots. They didn't even exist. Nobody was prepared for this. So if you actually look at some of the pictures of the area, you will see cars parked just down the side of the street, double parked and everything, and the road's just a mess. And it became a horror story in our own campaign of, okay, where are you going to park? Oh gosh, just little things like that. But it does allow you some depth. I mean, it allowed us to have, some known villains too, of people that were in that era that were just a lot of bad people.
Have you guys had any problems with pedantry when it comes to like historical accuracy? I'm like, that person.
No.
Okay.
No.
Actually.
Okay. I was gonna say like, really? I thought maybe I had that problem all the time with my players. Players are always like, that's not how that would work. I'm like, why not?
That's part of us. That's part of us talking about this stuff ahead of time. And I mentioned the character creation thing. Like I said, that went out today under gear. That as a rule of thumb, you could basically say that $1 in 1927 was about worth $20 today. So whatever you might spend $20 on, it would be like $1 in that era.
Right.
It's not exact, because there were things like you spend 5 cents to get a cup of coffee and a donut. They were literally coffee and a donut places. They were called that, and it's a nickel to get a coffee and a donut. And I was like, if I could find a place that did that for $1, and I said, but you can allow some leeway when there's a goblin pouring the coffee and there's an ogre making the donuts. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just go with the flow on some of this stuff.
There you go.
Yeah. And I also will say that as far as pedantry goes, Jodi and I also have a thing that when we run the game, it is an alternate history. So whatever your characters do, you can change how things happened and affected from that point on.
Right.
Jodi herself changed the history of Al Capone.
What?
When he came to visit Los Angeles.
No, my character changed. Al Capone.
Her character did, yes.
Oh, sorry.
Jodi did not,
okay.
yes. But she made,
I
I won't get,
basically.
yeah. She healed him of a disease that he had that was causing him mental problems, and nowadays is presumed to be the reason why there are two different versions of Al Capone that people talked about.
Right.
The really nice guy and the really bad guy. And it's presumed to be that because it is part of the disease. And using her healing power on him at one time, she cured him of his disease, which I'm like, well, that's going to change history. Great.
Yep, very much. So, awesome. So, we mentioned the posts you've been putting out on the Black Edition Patreon. Yep. So let's actually talk about the Patreon real quick. Right now, you guys are focusing on Fate in LA. What? I guess first off, why a Patreon? We'll start there, and then we can go into more of the details from there.
Okay, so this is right off. Let's give it the shout out of this is all Christian Serrano and Tracy Sizemore's fault.
Oh, okay. Christian, you've been called out. I know you're in chat. So
yeah,
and they're Designing Problems podcast specifically because I was listening to that, and I turned to Clint and I was like, if you listen to this, they say it doesn't have to be perfect, just do it. Like, just throw it out there and see if people like it. And if they do, give them the opportunity to help you fund it for now till you can get to a more perfect, place. Because we talked about maybe preparing this as a quick start, for example. Well, you want to have it written, you want to have it edited, you want to have it in layout, you want to have art, you want to have your ACE licensee set up, you want to have everything set up. you know what? Let's not. Let's just start with the Patreon. Let's put out some posts. We don't have a logo. We don't have any art. We don't have nothing yet. It was just a concept, you know? Let's
Hmm.
just put this out there. And we've already, you know, like, okay, so we've got some people who are supporting us. We're going to put some money aside for some art and a logo and, you know, and then once we start fine tuning things, we can start laying them out better and releasing them on drive through, for example, because we don't
Right.
have anything on drive through yet. So this gives us the chance to grow as we go.
Yeah,
Cool. Christian does say, "Oops, our bad. Sorry about that."
yeah, yeah. We had talked about it so much. We had done everything. Jodi listened to that, and she was like, "We need to just do this." And Patreon is the way to do it. To be able to put stuff out, start with things, see how the interest is in it, and you know, what it's kind of like. And this came up in a discussion somewhere else I had about doing a Kickstarter where someone was saying they always, when they started a Kickstarter, they were always worried about failure, that it wasn't going to fund and everything like
Right.
that. And I pointed out that a Kickstarter that does not fund is not a failure because you have learned that you need to change something, either about the presentation or how it's being done, or maybe there's just not as much interest. The, a failed Kickstarter is one that funds and doesn't fulfill. And you know that's not a concern. Don't worry about not funding. So this is a case of you learned something. So we put it out there. Is there interest? Do people want to do it? If there's not, well, we haven't committed all this other stuff to layout and art and everything like Jodi talks about to do this. And as I'm finding, it's just, it is, you know, now that we've done it, it's so much more enjoyable to put stuff out there and get some feedback, you know, as you do it.
And I got to give Clint the props for this. It was his idea to do a Patreon for FanLA probably like a year ago. And I'm sorry,
Hmm.
world, because he said this, and I was like, well, we need to do this and this and this first instead. And then it kind of came back again as like, well, maybe we should try it this way or try it that way. Let's try to get our concept out this way because people were asking about it. Until finally, you know, listen to that. And then I was like, okay, Clint, I'm giving you the green light. Go ahead and look
Yeah.
into this. But I didn't tell him like which platform to use. He's the one who did the research and said, okay, Patreon's the best way to do this. And I think he's right.
Yeah. I also think it works really well with my ADHD.
Oh, just that. Why is that?
Well, because it's short blocks of writing, and it's getting feedback and concepts on this stuff, as opposed to um, so with hyper focus, you get into something, you write it up, you work on it, but then there can come a case of okay, but when you run out of hyper focus, you can kind of be done with something for a while, or you want to do something different. With Patreon, it's like okay, I'm going to do a post on character creation, and I can put that out there, and I can get that done, and you know, it's kind of short form writing.
Hmm.
Um, and and then it's like, okay, well now I can go and move on to setting rules or ancestries or something else and put that out there and do that as opposed to, okay, I have to look at this big picture and it seems overwhelming, especially with someone with ADHD. The bigger something is if you can cut it down into smaller chunks that you can focus on right in front of you, it makes it a lot easier to work with.
Right. So, about the Patreon real quick.
Mm-hmm.
One, your tier levels are genius. I don't know why I didn't think about that back when I was trying to set up memberships. I'm like, why didn't I think about doing dice sizes? That's a genius. Um, but what about so that aside,
Okay, thank you.
um, so I'll start there. Actually, you guys have different like levels to your Patreon for different tier levels. What are the kind of, you talk a little bit about what the kind of things you've been posting on there already, but what else can people see in the future for, for the support?
So, so essentially, if you come in and you're at the D4 tier, which I want to say right off the bat, like Savage Worlds, just having a D4 in something is huge. as opposed to running unskilled. And a D4 is big, and I want to make sure. D4 is going to give you access to all the Fey and LA stuff. It will come out, you will get it. D6 gets it a little bit earlier, like a week ahead of time, things like that. You get into the D8 tiers and stuff, and we start getting into that bonus content. And with bonus content, we want to do things like, okay, this isn't specifically Fey and LA, but we want to talk about running duet games, doing co-GMing and things like that. For a duet game, by the way, Jodi's already written up something for us to put out, where I will just straight up say she blew me away with the brilliant realization that she had about running plots in a duet game essentially flip-flops a bit from how you do it in any other game. And I won't go into it too much. She's got a great article on it, and we'll put it out there. But that's one of the things that we kind of want to put out there as kind of some bonus content. And when we come up with other things like that, and then we're also going to have, we're going to do a video chat recorded each month. Patrons at the D12 tier can actually be a part of that and be in there. But the first one we're going to do, we're going to actually have Christian and Tracy on and blame them for what they've done to us. But that chat will, if you're D12, you'll get to be a part of it. And then it'll go down to like the D10 and D8 people will eventually get the access to the VOD on that to follow up and look at it. And that's just really, it's not specifically something that says, oh, you have to have this for Fey and LA. It's just bonus stuff that we want to put out and get out there. And then the other thing that we have that is part of this is at the D8 tier and higher, I will actually once a month create for one of those patrons an edge or a hindrance of their choice, which I already have. I'm already working on the ones from January to put together, and then that goes out as bonus content to our patrons as well when we can combine all that together. Now, the D10 tier, because one of the things, and you do this well, is I want to support our licensees. So I've done a publisher level at D10, which is not only will I make that or a setting rule for them, but I'm doing it as work for hire. So they own it. Whatever they get, they're going to own. It's not something that I'm going to put out and publish later, so they get that. And D12 tier can have that as well. But yeah, so that's, some of the bonus content that's going to be out there is additional stuff. And occasionally we'll do things like we opened it up with a set of 6 edges that I came up with that I put out that, you could kind of, I will say some of them were inspired by our Fey and LA game, specifically Talented, the edge we have in there. But, you can use those in any game that you feel they would be available for. They aren't specific to urban fantasy.
Sure.
And that's kind of stuff we're kind of looking at in addition to Fey and LA, which will go out. And like I said, everybody gets in. Maybe once we have it done, we'll have another setting that we want to go into. But I don't want to ADHD squirrel my way out of focus on what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, right. So that brings up the next question, which is, what is the timeline for your goal? Like, do you have a goal in mind for when you'd like to have Fey and LA either kickstarting or published or on Jodi RPG or anything like that?
Nope.
No timeline.
Nope.
Okay.
No timeline. Because we're as Clint's writing, he's going, okay, I'm going to need to do a separate post on that. Like, okay, this one's going to be setting rules, but that's going to be a separate section on ancestries because, as we talked about earlier, ancestries are a pretty big deal and that's more complicated. So that's going to be a whole other section. So he is kind of like spiderwebbing his way through it. So we won't know how big it is until he's gotten to, I think, probably a tipping point. And once we've got enough material put together that we think we can do a quick start, I think then we'll put something together.
That I was going to say also, like I was going to ask, I meant to ask about quick starts because that's one of my favorite ways to get an idea for a game. And if someone's interested in studying, I say, okay, cool. Yep. check out the quick start for that, because then you can get an idea, you get a feel for it. You get like an adventure, you get a feel for the character kind of archetypes you can create in the game. And it really gives you like a very good rough idea of what the game's gonna be like if you get the full book.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we already have six pre-gen characters built that I used for the playtest, and then Jodi and I next month are going to be at Mythic West in Asheville, North Carolina convention, and we're both going to be running Fey in LA there. We're actually doing, much like our co-GMing, we're doing concurrent adventures. They're going to be separate adventures that are taking place at the same time and the same date in Los Angeles.
Oh.
It's just one big event that's happening at a huge festival that's happening at the beach, and it's going to be different things that are happening at the same time. Because just for fun, we decided to have it happen on the spring equinox, which is the day we shift to where the spring court Fae suddenly jump into their power, and they get a little, let's say, rowdy on that day. So it should be fun. But yeah, we've got pre-gen set up. That's part of what we kind of want to do is set up an adventure for the quick start, set up that. And the other thing we want to do is it's going to depend on how the Patreon, again, it's that thing of what reaction we get, how much positive thing. Because the money we're getting from this is going into the things like, there are places that we're going to need some maps of that we know
Right.
are iconic places in our version of LA that you can't just go find somewhere else. There's artwork, because there's a lot of supernatural beings that we need to see dressed in snappy suits and fedoras or as a flapper, that are out there, and just different outfits like that, and I want to find, obviously both Jodi and I, from our background with Pinnacle, is a big part of any book is finding the art and artists that give you a cohesive look
right.
to your
Yeah.
setting. And so that is,
Yeah, finding like the artist gives you like that setting, that feel that you want, and then having that nice. It is definitely like a. It kind of, I don't want to say it breaks immersion sometimes, but sometimes when you see you get a book and it's got like different art styles in it from like what
Yeah.
the previous one is. Yeah, it kind of like breaks that a certain feeling of that book. So
And
yeah,
I will say,
I definitely get that.
it doesn't necessarily take one artist doing all of them, but
Right.
you find the artist that does the style, and there are other artists out there that it's like, this is what we want it to look like, and they're going, okay, I can do that. I mean,
Yeah.
Cheyenne Wright, that has done so much stuff with Pinnacle, blows me away with how he has his own style, but you can give him another style and he can make it look like that. And there are other artists out there that are capable of the same thing. Artists are amazing, guys.
All right, cool. So I think that answers all the questions I had. Before we get into some of the questions I see in the chat,
Okay.
do you have anything else you wanted to mention?
I'm like, it's been like an hour and I'm like, oh my gosh, we still have people watching. Thank you.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I say Christian's in here, Shane's in here. I don't know if I've ever seen Shane in my live stream before. Hi, Shane. Maybe once before. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So looking through the chat here, we already answered the first question, which was like, what kind of Fae will you be able to play? Which just basically sounds like any kind of Fae you can dream of.
If you want a breakdown of the pre-gens, I will give you a preview of that. Our pre-gens are a goblin, an ogre, an imp, a Fae of just Fae ancestry, just normal kind of Fae.
A titled Fae, even you could say, but that's.
Well, we could
that's
say a
really-
titled Fae, but that gets into a setting rule that we haven't discussed yet.
Oh, previews.
Fae titles. Yeah,
Not
and
spoilers,
and we have a zombie that is in there. Oh, and the sorcerer that my player just loved, because the sorcerer actually has filthy rich, and because their trappings are they summon money. So their ranged attack is literally flinging coins at people, and it's like one of the other players said in the quote for the game was, he's like Gambit with money. But yeah, so That's the
Okay.
kind of things you can play and come up with your own.
So you guys talked about campaigns that you've been working on like, with each other in your own duet games, but do you guys plan on releasing any sort of plot point campaign or ready-made adventures for Faye in LA?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the hard part will be figuring out which one we want to go with first. Um, because you have to understand, we've already played through 2 plot points, mine and his. And then there's the, okay, well, what would we want to put out there as something for a group to play through, Because would the one that I came up with for his character, would that work for everybody else at the table? And vice versa. So that's
Yeah.
something that we would still need to figure out. But for standalone adventures, I've got a Google Drive full of them.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's see here. John Doom asked, he said, I guess he was just agreeing, that yes, it would be hard for Doubting Thomas would be a terrible hindrance for this setting.
I have to tell you though, as a GM, it was a lot of fun.
There you go.
Just screw with the player with that.
For the
though.
NPC. A player, it would be a bit much.
Yeah, as the NPC that I had in the game, it was great.
It's a fun NPC.
And then so I'm just reading through a bunch of other comments from John about like he saying that he loves historical settings because you get to do all the research. And then he says, unlike doing modern settings, which 85% of your Google searches will put you on a watch list when your players ask, okay, can we build atomics?
Yeah. Great.
Let's see here. And then also, apparently nothing's changed in LA because there's still no parking.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Let's see here. Just make sure I didn't make sure anything else. Hey guys, and by the way, if you guys do have any questions, please put them in the chat.
Yes, please do.
Armistice asks, is Harry Houdini a real sorcerer?
And you
No.
didn't even come up in our game. Not for me anyways.
No,
Did
but
you?
I had already figured that out, that Houdini was not a real sorcerer, and just because I respect the man so much, I wanted to kind of leave him because leave him out of it a bit at least, because of the whole thing of after his death of doing the yearly seance to try to reach his spirit. And I kind of felt in Faye in LA, no, he did what he wanted to do. He had a great life, and I think he just went on.
Okay. Man, I'm seeing a bunch of more comments coming in now. Okay, so, where'd it go? Vinkel asks, are the Marx Brothers Fae? So basically, we're just asking historical figures, and then are they this? That's what the questions are at this point.
We did bring in Capone, so that's fair.
We did.
That's fair.
Capone was still just a mortal who was not part of that. I will say, and it may come up in an adventure or Savage Tale, but we did have Rudolph Valentino dies in 1926. His ghost did show up in an adventure.
Okay.
Because we did have Valentino's ghost show up trying to wanting someone to help find the person who killed him. Because if you actually look at his death, he was in the hospital. They said he was fine. He was talking, and then 2 days later he was dead. And so, in our version, yeah, something happened in there. And,
Gotcha. Okay. And then John Doom wants to know if Tesla is a supernatural person at all.
I mean, I would
he's
say
not in
so.
LA.
He's not in LA. Okay, fair enough.
Right, yeah.
Alan Blunt asks, or sorry if I mispronounced your, yeah. Would a red cap PC be possible?
Ooh,
Yeah.
now see, red caps, we'd have to think
So-
about that actually, because that factored into my
Oh,
characters. The campaign that Clint ran for my characters.
Alan, you are triggering Jodi so badly.
But I think it's a funny question because, like, in my current game, one of my characters or my players has been playing a character who can summon a red cap to do his bidding. So,
So I will tell you, because it's not part of like the general thing, but in Jodi's character's background, she was a widow whose husband fought in the war, but actually came home and then died on their farm. And she decided, well, I've got to take care of my family, so I'm going to go try and be an actress. I'll go to LA. And of course, you give a GM something like that, they got to do it. She ends up finding out that to try to force a prophecy to occur, they had a red cap kill her husband and made it look like he got caught in the thresher machine,
Oh,
which is what she believed. So red caps, yes, they exist, but they are not great great things. I would
not
based off
something
the
a
way
player
you
should be
use them,
playing as.
yeah, probably not. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that would be an interesting background. Are you a rehabilitated red cap?
Mm.
Could be.
That would
Yeah.
be a really angsty background that I would eat up with a spoon, actually. So,
Yeah, as I say, the character who's got a red cap as his servant is pretty angsty. Alan says, "I can do it." All right. Sean Murrow asks, "How many corporations are run by the supernatural?" Which I think does ask me a question about the facade and how much they allow the supernatural beings to interfere with the lives of mortals.
there are
So-
some. I'll
Yes.
say there are some big corporations that are run by the facade or by facade members.
We have some fictional members of the facade who are very important actors and actresses. You know, there are other companies and things that are involved
There
in
was
this
the
kind of
other,
thing. But in general, because of the facade, a lot, unless, you know, a fae or supernatural has some ability to be a little bit easier to hide themselves, they tend not to try to put themselves in the spotlight for that kind of stuff. So it's unlikely, but if there is somebody doing it, they're probably pretty powerful. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sean Murrow also asked a second question. Now, he's asked about creatures from Japan, the yokai from Japan. Would they have any ability to fit inside of Fae in LA?
Absolutely. You
absolutely.
can take supernatural creatures from any culture and fit them in. As a matter of fact, I was looking at that earlier of trying to decide whether Oni would be Fae or Infernals, because they could fall into either category, and I haven't really decided. And honestly, I don't think we would in the book. I think we would say it's up to the GM and the player to kind of decide how they want that to be, and then that becomes canon for their campaign.
Absolutely. That's it's a nice thing about one of the things that sometimes I think some game masters and players need to understand is that, hey, once you have the book in your hand, it's your game,
Yeah.
not that not what I do with these books is up to me, and Pinnacle doesn't get a say in it. It's my job.
That's right.
Now that I have them, so it's true for even for the settings. So I think it sounds like you guys are doing a great job, like figuring out a way to allow players to make and GMs to come up with new, unique things that doesn't necessarily fit inside of the the obvious races or the pre-generated races. I think that's a good idea.
I will say that if you are creating a supernatural creature, a lot of them fall under the umbrella of Fae.
Sure.
Because the Fae realm is also called the Wild, with an E, and it represents the seasons, the extremes of one thing or another, and you'll find that a lot of supernatural creatures from mythology are based on those concepts and tenets of this represents this aspect almost of humanity in some way, shape, or form. And so you have those kind of things. So centaurs, minotaurs, satyrs, goblins, ogres, a lot of the things that you would find in there, there's gnomes and dwarves from history, or oni, or yokai, or whatever. If you find that hook of what is the element that from the storytelling that made them what they are, that they represented it, then that's really going to tell you, okay, that's a Fae.
Gotcha. John Doom does ask another question. What makes the facade thin? So you mentioned, I think early in the stream that the facade could be thin or it could even break. What causes that to happen? He also asks, if it's normies encountering supernatural stuff, could there be a runaway event where the facade is broken, causing it to break, or where the facade is broken, causing it to break, Yeah. Can something really bad happen to the facade? Basically, is the question.
No comment.
No comment. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. You'll just have to find out Hamster Doom on your own.
You might be talking specifically about a Savage Tale or even part of a plot point there that could occur.
Could occur.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
I think you get your answer for that, John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. Mr. Doom. All right. Well, that is all the questions I'm seeing. If I missed it, I apologize, everyone. Do you have anything else that you guys want to add about Fate LA, the Patreon, anything like that we did not cover?
I just want to say that I'm thrilled that people want to have fun with our little baby here. You know, that it's been a lot of fun for us to make it. It's been fun for us to play in it. And now people are interested in sharing in that. And in the interest of just, let's all have a good time. Let's tell some fun stories. That's what it's all about. And we're just thrilled that people want to join us on that journey. So thank you. Thank you. It's just incredibly flattering. Thank you.
And I would mirror what Jodi said, but I will also add, even if I forget to put it in a post or I forget to put it in anything, feedback and comments and things like that feeds our soul and lets us know you're interested in how you want to see things go and what you want to see. And please, let us know, if you've seen the character creation thing, what in it has struck you? What did you like? What, leads you having questions about this or wondering about, or, what are you looking for? I mean, if it is, hey, I'd like to see some options for, ancestries from other cultures and things like that. Let us know what those are and what intrigues you.
Perfect. Cool. So if you're interested in Fate LA in the Patreon, there should be a link down below. I did see, I think someone asked about the link to the Patreon. That should be in the description below. I will double check it here in a moment because I'm pretty sure I put it there. But now I'm concerned that I didn't. But I'm pretty sure I did. So we'll check that out. And if you're interested in this, you can either you guys have a free level that you just join just to get updates about the posts and everything. And then you have your D4, your D8, or D6, your D8 levels as well. So check those all out. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I appreciate everyone coming out for us to talk about Jodi and Clint. Jodi, Clint, thank you for coming on and chatting about this. And it's been fun to talk to you guys and just hear about all the fun stuff that you're doing and your games. And at some point, we might have to talk more about duet games. I think there was some other topic that we had to talk about too. So we'll have to schedule some more stuff. But thank you all.
There's so much out there. Yeah.
There's so
and
much out
thank
there.
you for having us.
Yeah,
Thank
happy
you
to have you.
so much. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, you all. And you all have a great night and a great week. And see y'all later. Cheers.
Bye.